welcome back to the channel. I am your friendly blue mage, Azrain. Commander Quick Looks are finally making their return, and I want to start by saying thank you to all of the new viewers and subscribers. I love reading all of your comments. Since I've hit the 500 subscribers, I've been able to add a membership to my channel. I have a few different tiers of membership, from priority comment replies, access to a private Discord channel where you can get my content early and interact with me directly, all the way up to being featured in my videos. If that's something that interests you, please feel free to check it out, but it's certainly not necessary. Even without being a member here on YouTube, go to the link in my bio or the description of this video to join my Discord where we can talk all things magic. One more thing I want to mention is that I've started to live stream some EDH when I can. So if you want the chance to be a part of that, go ahead and check out my Discord for more information. Anyway, today we're going to look at a non-blue commander from the recent set of Wilds of Eldraine, Ariet of the Charmed Apple. Now Ariet is a 3-mana, 2/4, so she's a good return on power and toughness. She's 1 and Orzhov, so white and a black. Ariet says each creature that's enchanted by an aura you control can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. So it kind of gives us double-edged protection if we're running some more planeswalker synergies in the Orzhov colors. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of auras you control. So now Ariet does two very interesting things. Ariet lets us enchant our opponent's creatures and does a little mini goad effect. Now it's different than a real goad because real goad forces an attack, whereas Ariet just says that creatures can't attack us or planeswalkers that we control. Ariet gives us protection from the board's scariest creatures and makes sure that they will never come our way as long as she's around. This is where Ariet's effect is a bit better than Goad in my opinion, because when the game comes down to a 1v1, goaded creatures have to attack, and they have no one else to attack but us, whereas Ariet just simply says that creatures can't attack us or planeswalkers we control. So even in that endgame 1v1 scenario, Ariet is going to make sure that we're safe. The second effect that Ariet brings us is at the beginning of our end step, each opponent is going to lose X, we gain X, where X is the auras. This is the real kicker of this card. This is what makes Ariet a real threat. Ariet can be built in a way where we can boost our opponent's creatures and make sure those boosted creatures never come our way. But then on top of that, we're gaining and draining like any good Orzhov player does. This makes Ariet a prime target for removal, because our opponents are going to want to attack us at some point in the game, and more importantly, they're not going to want to lose life at our end step every turn. Ariet is nice because we can be patient with casting her, and not get her out on turn 3 every game, but we can slowly start infecting the table with our auras, and then bring her out later to make sure that nothing scary comes our way, and then immediately drain and gain the table to either take a player out, or we can make sure to return our life total to a healthy 40. To be honest, Ariet is not going to be liked by your opponents. She will probably be the cause for a lot of removal, so make sure you bring in a lot of protection spells like the classic Swiftfoot Lightning Greaves, and even things in our colors like Kaya's Ghost Form and Gift of Immortality. But let's get into the rest of the cards. Remember that this is just a quick look at what the deck could be. This is not a full 100 card breakdown. Make sure to leave in the comments below about a card that you would put in this deck. So we're just going to start off with the top auras of the deck. So first of all, we're going to talk about Songbird's Blessing, a 4-mana enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an aura card. You may put that card onto the battlefield. If you don't put it into your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your library. So Songbird's Blessing is a little expensive at 4 mana, but honestly our deck curve is going to be pretty low, with a lot of these enchantments being about 2 to 4 mana, 4 being like the highest end. So the Songbird's Blessing, it specifically hits auras that we want, and we get to either put it onto the battlefield or we can put it into our hand if it's some kind of casting effect. So the Songbird's Blessing is just going to do everything we want it to. Now we're not forcing creatures to attack, but if we put it on a creature that's incentivized to attack, like our opponents have a creature out that wants to go to combat, we want to put this card on that creature. Next is going to be some impetus cards, so I'm just going to put them all up on screen right now. That's Parasitic Impetus, Ghoulish Impetus, and Martial Impetus. So first off, the Parasitic enchanted creature is +2/+2 and goaded. Whenever the enchanted creature attacks, its player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Pretty simple. The Ghoulish enchanted creature is 1/1, has Death Touch. When the enchanted creature dies, return Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So again, this is just a way to get around casting the card, and we're going to get to play it for free. So it just dies, and then it comes back, and we put it on something else. And Martial Impetus. Enchanted creature gets 1/1. Obviously, they're goated. When the enchanted creature attacks, each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents gets +1/+1. So this isn't like a super great impetus, but I thought I'd throw it in because it specifically goads creatures and does make them attack, like I mentioned earlier. Next is going to be Ethereal Armor, a 1-mana enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets 1/1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. So this is going to make a creature that our opponents control super huge and really tanky. So we're going to control a lot of auras. This is going to give that creature, +6, +7, and gives it first strike. So it's a horrible block for our opponents, and it's just going to make that creature huge, and they can't attack us. But we're going to want to be careful with this because if Ariet ever gets removed, this creature's coming at us and it's going to hit us for a lot. Next is going to be things that return creatures to our control with Minions Return and Unholy Indenture. So Minions Return, 3 mana, it's got Flash. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So it's just going to enchant the creature, make sure it can't come our way, and then when it inevitably dies to a board wipe, removal, or just combat, it's going to come back to us. Same thing for Unholy Indenture. When enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with a 1/1 counter on it. Next is going to be All That Glitters. This is really similar to the Ethereal Armor, so enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. So this is, again, just going to make a creature massive and really scary on the board. I also mentioned this card earlier, the Gift of Immortality. So this card is either going to be perfect to go on Ariet or something else, and we're just going to want to, we just keep getting it back. So if it's a really big, scary creature that we want to make sure that we keep on a leash, we're going to put Gift of Immortality on it. So it's 3 mana. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, but then you also return Gift of Immortality attached to that creature. So it's just going to be like a permanent enchantment unless it gets exiled. Next up is going to be Dead Man's Chest. You can only enchant a creature that an opponent controls, so exactly what we want to do anyway. When enchanted creature dies, exile cards equal to its power from the top of its owner's library, and you may cast spells from among those cards as long as they remain exiled. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. So again, we're not getting to cast something for free, but Dead Man's Chest is just going to give us incidental value when something dies, and it's a low cost enchantment. It's only 2 mana. Next is going to be Glistening Oil for 2 black. Enchant creature. The enchanted creature has Infect, so if you want to start taking your opponents out with some Infect damage, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on enchanted creature, but when Glistening Oil is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Glistening Oil to our hands. So again, Glistening Oil is going to act as removal, it's going to build up some Infect damage, and then it comes back to our hand and we can recast it. So along with the Glistening Oil, some other cards that I wanted to talk about are Screams from Within and Shielded by Faith and Angelic Destiny. So just starting off, we're going to read Screams from Within. So it's 3 mana, enchanted creature gets -1/-1. When enchanted creature is put into a graveyard, return Screams from Within from our graveyard to play. Shielded by Faith, enchanted creature is indestructible. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Shielded by Faith to that creature. So again, you can just move Shielded by Faith around. So when a scarier thing enters, you just move Shielded by Faith to it. Angelic Destiny, the creature becomes gets +4/+4, flying, first strike, and is an angel. When the enchanted creature dies, return Angelic Destiny to its owner's hand. So I wanted to include a lot of cards in here that just come back to us naturally without us having to put a lot of graveyard stuff in our deck. So these cards are either going to come back to the battlefield or they're going to come back to our hands and we can recast them. And the last one in this list is going to be Greater Oromancy. So 2 mana, other enchantments you control have Shroud, and enchanted creatures you control have Shroud. So the last part, enchanted creatures we control have Shroud, we're probably not going to be enchanting our creatures, but it gives our enchantments Shroud, so that way if someone wants to remove the enchantment from one of their creatures, they're going to have a really tough time doing it. Now moving on to the next section, it's one that I always talk about and probably the most important section when building decks is card draw. So how does our deck keep in the game? How do we stop from just top decking? So the first card that I want to talk about, the first 3 cards are going to be Ashiok's Reaper, Hateful Eidolon, and Armored Skyhunter. The Ashiok's Reaper is 4 mana. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So whenever our opponent's creatures are dying, we draw cards. Hateful Eidolon, it's got lifelink, so that might be important, but it's 1 mana, which is more important. Whenever an enchanted creature dies, draw a card for each aura you control that was attached to it. So this can stack a lot, and it's got lifelink, so for whatever reason we would need that. But it says whenever an enchanted creature dies, so it doesn't mean like our creatures, it hits everyone's creatures, and it's going to stack. You know, if we have 3 enchantments on one creature, we draw 3 cards, which is insane. And then the Armored Sky Hunter, I know it's not technically card draw, but it's got flying, and whenever Armored Sky Hunter attacks, we're going to look at the top 6 cards of our library, and we may put an aura or equipment from among them onto the battlefield. So that's really the important part about this card, so we can make sure to get our Swiftfoot Boots, our Lightning Greaves, or we can just keep getting auras out. And the last 3 in the card draw section is going to be Mesa Enchantress, SRAM Senior Edificer, and Core Spirit Dancer. Now these all say something like, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card. So the Core Spirit Dancer does get a +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, but again, we're going to want to attach our auras to our opponent's creatures. But in a pinch, we could attach things to the Core Spirit Dancer and start really buffing it up. But anyway, these, again, all of these are really cheap. They're 4 mana or below, and they're just going to keep stacking and drawing us cards. So you can already see that this deck is very low mana cost. The curve is very low. And the next section is going to be Graveyard. So how do we get our enchantments and our auras back from our graveyard that don't have it stapled onto it like the few that I had mentioned before? So the first one is going to be obvious. One of the more expensive cards in the deck is going to be Sun Titan. So you all know Sun Titan. You all love Sun Titan. 6 mana, Vigilance, 6/6. When it enters or attacks, we get to return a permanent with converted mana 3 or less to the battlefield. Another card that's similar to Sun Titan is Brilliant Restoration. So this is probably the highest mana cost in the deck. It's 3 white for 7. But we return all artifacts and enchantments from our graveyard to the battlefield. So if we have some artifacts that died, I don't know why or how, but those come back with the enchantments. So this is just going to put all of our enchantments back out onto the battlefield and just give us a huge power boost. And then the next one to go in line with these two would be Open the Vaults. So again, 6 mana, it's expensive. Return all artifacts and enchantments from all graveyards to the battlefield. So it's going to hit everyone, but again, we pay 1 more white mana and we get Brilliant Restoration, but they're similar effects, and you're going to want to stack similar effects together. And the last 3 are going to be Retether, Savine's Reclamation, and the expensive Replenish. So Retether, return each aura card from your graveyard to play, and only creatures can be enchanted this way. Obviously, like, that's what we're going to be doing anyway. At 4 mana, it's really good. Savine's Reclamation is literally Sun Titan, but it's on a 3 mana spell that can be flashbacked for 5 mana, and Replenish is really expensive, so I'm just talking about it because it does the thing. So return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to play. But again, it's like $80, $85. I don't know if I'd recommend this, but I wanted to talk about it. And the next section, it's just 2 quick cards. It's removal that specifically can deal with enchanted things or something like that. And you'll see what I mean when I get into it. So the first one is going to be Winds of Wrath, and the next one is going to be Austerior Command. So Winds of Wrath, 5 mana board wipe, a little expensive. Destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted and they cannot be regenerated. So probably either going to want to follow up with casting Ariet, or we're going to want to make sure that she's also enchanted when we cast this, but it's going to wipe away anything that we don't have enchanted to make sure that our opponents keep those things and they keep hitting each other with them. And the Austerior Command, again, 6 mana, but it can wipe big creatures, it can wipe small creatures, it can wipe artifacts. But it's important here, it says destroy all enchantments, so we're probably not going to want to do that, but we can hit all the big creatures, or we can hit all the small creatures that we don't have enchanted. We can make sure that our enchantments stay around, or we can wipe those problematic artifact decks. And in the next section, it is the good stuff. So here I'm going to talk about a couple cost reducers, and then I'm going to talk about some token generators. So the cost reducer section is going to be Killen, Ink Duelist, Starfield Mystic, and Transcendent Envoy. Killen says that spells we cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. He's got Menace and Lifelink, so he can be a good target for enchanting. Starfield Mystic, enchantments cost 1 less to play, and the Transcendent Envoy is auras cost 1 less to play. So those are the reasons why they are going to be here. They're going to technically act as our ramp. And the token generation is going to be Archon of Sun's Grace, Ajani's Chosen, Hallowed Haunting, and Sigil of the Empty Throne. So each of these has something along the lines that says whenever we cast an enchantment spell, we get something. So the Archon is going to make a 2/2 Pegasus with flying, and then it also has lifelink, and the Pegasus that we control has lifelink. Ajani's Chosen makes 2/2 Cats. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, create a 2/2 white cat. If that enchantment is an aura, you may attach it to the token. So you don't have to. Hallowed Haunting is going to make spirits that just get bigger and bigger for the amount of spirits that we have. And Sigil of the Empty Throne is going to make 4/4 white angels with flying. So we're going to want to be incidentally growing our board as we're enchanting other creatures around the table. And lastly is going to be Sphere of Safety. So for 5 mana, creatures can't attack you or planeswalker you control unless their opponent pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments we control. So I didn't want to bring up Ghostly Prison because Ghostly Prison is just 2 mana. This could get absurd. It could be 8, 10 mana for each creature that's coming at us. Ariet stops that, but then the Sphere of Safety is going to hit the other creatures that are not enchanted because, we're probably not going to enchant the entire board. Moving on into our last section, something that I always love to do is what are the other legends that can be in this deck? First legend that I wanted to bring up is probably one of the strongest in the deck is going to be Lightpaws, Emperor's Voice. For 2 mana, we get a 2/2 Fox Advisor. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under our control, if we cast it, we may search our library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura with a different name than that aura and put it onto the battlefield attached to Lightpaws. So a lot of text on this card, but Lightpaws is going to, when we cast an aura, we get to go get another aura. Now we do have to put it on Lightpaws, but again, we can stack Lightpaws up with some really good effects. If Lightpaws ends up dying or gets removed, we put those into the graveyard, and then hopefully our graveyard synergies, we can bring those back and put them onto other people's creatures. So even though that it does have to enchant Lightpaws, it's still going to be good to get those effects out regardless. Next is going to be Lurrus of the Dream Den. So this can be another card that gets things out of our graveyard. Lurrus does have Companion, but we're not going to worry about that. Lurrus is a 3/2 with lifelink. During each of our turns, we may cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana 2 or less from our graveyard. So again, our curve is really low, and Lurrus is going to make sure that we can just keep getting those single 1 mana enchantment auras out. Next is Neva, Stalked by Nightmares, a 4 mana 2/2 menace. When Neva, Stalked by Nightmares, enters the battlefield, return target creature or enchantment card from our graveyard to our hand. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Neva, and then we scry 1. So again, this is just kind of, it's an uncommon. It's from the same set. I thought it was pretty cool. Scrying is always powerful. We get to grow Neva's power, and it allows us to return something to our hand. So I thought it was a pretty cool include here. Next is going to be Daxos the Returned. Whenever we cast an enchantment spell, we get an experience counter. You pay 3 mana, 1 white, black, so the casting cost of our commander, and we put a white-black spirit onto the battlefield. That's its power and toughness is equal to the number of experience counters that we have. So again, just another thing to keep growing our board as we're casting enchantment auras, and then Daxos is going to keep track of that, and then we get to just keep making big creatures for as long as we control Daxos. We can keep making them, and then those creatures stay around. They still see our experience counters, even if Daxos is no longer on the board. And lastly, we are going to talk about Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist. So he's 3 mana. So the reason I want to talk about him is he's a little kind of out there, but he's special. So at the beginning of combat on our turn, you may attach any number of auras and equipments we control to target permanent or player. So he's got partner, but obviously he's not our commander. So Arden will just allow us to basically suit up one of our creatures with every enchantment or aura we control, or we can suit up an opponent's creatures with everything we control. So this is going to allow us to get a huge kill shot on someone. So if someone doesn't have any blockers, or if we just need a massive creature with tons of effects, Arden is just going to allow us to suit up any creature that we need to. It's creature or player, but obviously we're playing a lot of auras, so it's going to be basically creature every time. And I think that's going to wrap it up for this Commander Quick Look. I really just wanted to get back into the swing of doing these, just making a little bit more short form videos, not making every video an hour long. And I always love brewing some important cards around different commanders, and I thought that Ariet was interesting when I first saw her. I'm not too sure that I would build this myself, but I definitely think that this is an interesting strategy, and there's a lot of angles that you can go with Ariet. Like I said, She seems really political, so she's not forcing attacks, but she says that we can't be attacked, so it's political. And when you play her, when you play your auras, what auras are you playing? Are you playing the more goad strategy? You know, just kind of, it's the Pillow Fort, Drain and Gain kind of Orzhov style that it's known for, but it just seems really fun that it's around enchantment auras. So the game is always going to be different because you're enchanting the creatures that your opponents control, so you're giving them different effects, and then they kind of get to swing those creatures around the table. So it's always going to have a different feel every time as you're enchanting different things with different effects. So anyway, that is going to do it for this video. I am your friendly blue mage, Azarain. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a comment on how you would build Ariet, and if you have an Ariet deck, make sure to check the description of this video to join my Discord, where we can hang out off stream, off of the videos. But anyway, thank you for watching.